Part 1, The Fall. The perfect life shattered. Maya Chin stood in the doorway of Marcus Blackwell's home office, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. The engagement ring on her finger suddenly felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. On the computer screen in front of her glowed the evidence that would destroy everything she thought she knew about the man she was supposed to marry in 3 months. Transaction records. Forged signatures. Her brother Daniel's name on documents he never signed. Money flowing out of her family's construction company into offshore accounts. And Marcus's name buried deep in the code, hidden but traceable if you knew where to look. She'd come home early from a client meeting, excited to surprise him with news that she'd won the bid for the new museum project. The biggest opportunity of her architectural career. Instead, she found his laptop open, still logged into the company's financial system. He must have stepped away in a hurry. Maya's hands trembled as she pulled out her phone and started taking pictures. Every document, every screen, every piece of evidence she could find. Her mind was racing, trying to make sense of what she was seeing. Marcus had been embezzling from her family's company for over a year. Hundreds of thousands of dollars. Maybe more. And he'd framed Daniel for all of it. Her older brother, the person who taught her to ride a bike, who worked himself to exhaustion to help pay for her architecture degree, who trusted Marcus because Maya loved him. Daniel was sitting in a jail cell right now, awaiting trial for crimes he didn't commit. Crimes that Marcus had carefully, methodically pinned on him. Maya? Baby, you're home early. She spun around. Marcus stood in the doorway, still wearing his expensive suit from work, his handsome face splitting into that charming smile that used to make her heart skip. Now it made her stomach turn. I can explain, he said, and his voice was so calm, so smooth, that for a moment she almost believed him. That's what he did. He made people believe him. Explain what? Maya asked, her voice shaking. Explain how you stole from my family? Explain how you destroyed my brother's life? Explain which part, Marcus? His smile faded. Something cold flickered in his eyes, something she'd never seen before. Or maybe it had always been there, and she'd just been too blind to notice. You weren't supposed to see that, he said quietly. No, I wasn't. Maya clutched her phone tighter. But I did. And I have proof now. I'm going to the police. I'm going to tell them everything. Marcus moved fast. He crossed the room and grabbed her wrist before she could react. Not hard enough to hurt, but firm enough to make his point. You're not going anywhere, he said. His voice was still calm, but there was steel underneath it now. You think the police will believe you? I've been working on this for months, Maya. Every transaction has your digital signature on it too. Every fake document has your approval. If Daniel goes down, you go down with him. Maya felt the blood drain from her face. You wouldn't. I already have. He let go of her wrist and straightened his tie, like they were discussing dinner plans instead of her life falling apart. There are emails from your account. Phone records. Even testimony from people who say they saw you at the office late at night when these transactions went through. I've been very thorough. You're insane, Maya whispered. Marcus shrugged. I'm practical. That company was bleeding money into bad investments. I just redistributed the funds somewhere more useful. But I needed someone to take the fall when it eventually came to light. Daniel was convenient. And if you make this difficult, so are you. I'll fight this. I'll prove it was you. With what money? Marcus asked, and now he was smiling again. You'll be drowning in legal fees. Your family will be destroyed trying to defend both you and Daniel. Your reputation in the architectural world? Gone. No firm will touch you. You'll lose everything. He reached out and touched her face, gentle as a lover. Maya flinched but didn't pull away. Or, he continued softly, you can be smart. Break up with me quietly. Move on with your life. I'll make sure the evidence against you disappears. You can start over somewhere else. Daniel does his time, gets out in a few years with good behavior. It's not ideal, but it's better than both of you in prison. Maya stared at him. The man she'd loved, the man she'd planned to build a life with. He was a stranger. He'd always been a stranger. Get out, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Maya. Get out of my house. Now. Marcus studied her face for a long moment. Then he nodded, picked up his laptop, and walked to the door. He paused at the threshold and looked back. You're making a mistake, he said. But it's your mistake to make. Then he was gone. Maya stood alone in the office, shaking so hard she had to sit down. She looked at the pictures on her phone, the evidence she'd gathered. It wasn't enough. Marcus had been too careful. He'd spent months building his perfect trap. And she'd walked right into it. The long fall. The next 6 months were a nightmare that Maya would remember for the rest of her life. She went to the police with her evidence. They listened politely and then told her that unfortunately, the evidence against both her and her brother was quite substantial. Marcus had done his homework. Every digital trail led back to Daniel, and increasingly, to Maya herself. Her protests of innocence sounded exactly like what they were, desperate. The prosecutor offered her a deal. Testify against Daniel, claim he'd coerced her into helping him, and she might avoid prison time. Maya refused. She would never betray her brother, especially not for a crime he didn't commit. Daniel's trial was swift and brutal. Marcus testified as a witness, playing the role of the concerned boyfriend who'd discovered the fraud and reported it. He was convincing. He was always convincing. The jury found Daniel guilty on all counts. 7 years in federal prison. Maya sat in the courtroom and watched her brother, her protector, her best friend, get led away in handcuffs. He looked back at her once, and his eyes said what his mouth couldn't, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you from this. But there was nothing he could have done. Marcus had planned this too well. The legal fees bankrupted their family. Maya's parents had to sell their house, the house she grew up in, just to pay the lawyers. The construction company collapsed under the scandal. Her father aged 10 years in 10 months. Her mother stopped sleeping. And Maya? Maya lost everything. The architectural firm she worked for let her go. Image problems, they said, not meeting her eyes. No other firm would hire her. Her name was mud in the industry. The museum project went to someone else. Her savings disappeared into legal fees and bail bond payments that ultimately didn't matter. She had to move out of her apartment into a place the size of a closet. She took 3 jobs just to pay rent and send money to help her parents. Mornings she worked at a coffee shop. Afternoons she did data entry from home. Nights she cleaned offices. She worked herself to exhaustion and then worked some more, because if she stopped, if she let herself think too hard about what her life had become, she would break. Sometimes she saw Marcus around the city. He'd moved on to another woman, another victim. He'd look at Maya with those cold eyes and smile, and she knew he was thinking, I won. You lost. That's how this story ends. Maya would look away and keep walking. What else could she do? A light in the darkness. 8 months after Daniel's conviction, Maya was volunteering at a children's hospital. It was the one thing she did that wasn't about survival. Once a week, she spent 2 hours reading to kids who were too sick to go home. It reminded her that there were problems in the world bigger than her own, that there was still innocence and hope to protect. She was reading Where the Wild Things Are to a little girl named Sophie when a man sat down in the chair beside her. Maya glanced up, ready to politely tell him this was a private session, and stopped. He was maybe 35, with dark hair starting to gray at the temples and eyes that looked like they'd seen too much. He wore jeans and a plain black sweater, expensive but understated. There was something about him that was both powerful and broken, like a sword that had been shattered and carefully put back together. "Sorry," he said quietly, not wanting to interrupt the story. "Sophie's a friend of mine. I just wanted to say hello." Sophie's face lit up. "Ethan. You came." The man, Ethan, smiled, and it transformed his whole face. "I promised, didn't I? How are you feeling today, kiddo?" "Better. Miss Maya is reading to me. She has the best voices." "I can hear that." Ethan glanced at Maya, and their eyes met for just a second. She saw something there, recognition of some kind, though she didn't know what. Then he looked back at Sophie. "I'll let you finish your story. But I left something for you at the nurse's station. Something you've been wanting." Sophie gasped. "The new art supplies? Every color they make." After Sophie's mother came to take her back to her room, Ethan turned to Maya. "You're very good with her," he said. "She looks forward to your visits." "She's a special kid," Maya replied, gathering the books she'd brought. "She deserves all the joy she can get." "Yes, she does." Ethan hesitated, then held out his hand. "Ethan Cross." Maya shook it automatically. "Maya Chen." Something flickered across his face. Recognition again, but deeper this time. "I thought so," he said quietly. Maya felt her stomach drop. Here it came. The judgment. The disgust. Another person who'd read about her in the papers, who thought they knew her story. "I should go," she said, standing up quickly. "Wait." Ethan stood too. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable. I know who you are. I know what happened to you." "Then you know I don't want to talk about it." Maya started walking toward the door. "I know you're innocent," Ethan called after her. She stopped. Slowly, she turned around. "What?" Ethan took a few steps closer, keeping his voice low. "Marcus Blackwell. He destroyed my sister too. 3 years ago. She was engaged to him. Found out he was using her father's business to launder money. When she threatened to expose him, he framed her for it. The stress of the trial, the shame, she couldn't handle it. She took her own life before the verdict came down." Maya felt like all the air had been sucked out of the room. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I've been tracking him ever since," Ethan continued. "Trying to find proof that would stick. Trying to find other victims. When I read about your brother's case, I knew. I recognized the pattern. Marcus's signature style." "Why are you telling me this?" Ethan looked at her with those haunted eyes. "Because I want to take him down. And I need your help to do it." Maya laughed, a bitter sound. "I have nothing. No money, no power, no connections. I work 3 jobs just to survive. What could I possibly do?" "You have something I don't," Ethan said. "You know how he thinks. You know his patterns. You loved him once, which means you understand him better than anyone. That's exactly why I can't help you. I couldn't see him for what he was until it was too late. I failed my brother. I failed my family." "You were deceived by a master manipulator," Ethan said gently. "That's not the same as failure." Maya shook her head, tears burning her eyes. "I can't. I'm sorry about your sister. I truly am. But I can't go through that again. I can't lose any more." She walked away before he could say anything else. But she couldn't stop thinking about his offer. The decision. 2 weeks later, Maya was cleaning offices at midnight when her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. "Maya Chen?" A woman's voice, professional. "Yes?" "This is Nurse Williams from Westside Federal Prison. Your brother Daniel asked me to call. He's been attacked. He's in the infirmary." The world tilted. Maya grabbed the desk to keep from falling. Is he okay? Stable. But he's asking for you. Maya was in her car within minutes, driving through the empty city streets toward the prison. Her hand shook on the wheel. Daniel. Her brother. The person she should have been able to protect, the person who was suffering because of her mistakes. The prison was a gray fortress on the edge of the city. Maya went through security, surrendered her belongings, and was led to the infirmary. Daniel lay in a bed, his face bruised and swollen, one arm in a cast. Hey, little sister, he said when he saw her, trying to smile. It made his split lip bleed. Don't talk. Maya grabbed his good hand, holding on tight. What happened? Wrong place, wrong time. Story of my life these days. He squeezed her hand back. I'm okay. Takes more than a few thugs to keep me down. But Maya could see the truth in his eyes. He wasn't okay. None of this was okay. I'm going to fix this, she said fiercely. I'm going to prove you're innocent. I'm going to get you out of here. Daniel shook his head sadly. Maya, no. You need to let this go. You need to move on with your life. How can I move on when you're here? When mom and dad are destroying themselves with worry? When Marcus is out there, free, probably doing this to someone else? Because I need you to, Daniel said. I need to know that you're okay. That you're living. That this didn't destroy you the way it's destroying me. Please, Maya. Promise me you'll move on. She couldn't promise that. She wouldn't. When Maya left the prison an hour later, she didn't go home. She drove to the hospital where she'd met Ethan Cross. She found him in the same spot where they'd talked before, sitting beside Sophie's bed, reading to her while she slept. He looked up when Maya entered. Saw something in her face. I'll help you, Maya said without preamble. I'll help you destroy Marcus Blackwell. Whatever it takes. Ethan stood slowly. Are you sure? No, Maya admitted. But I'm doing it anyway. What do I need to do? Ethan studied her for a long moment. Then he said, we need to transform you. Make you unrecognizable. Give you the tools and resources to enter Marcus's world again, but this time on your terms. It won't be easy. It will take months of preparation. And it might break you. I'm already broken, Maya said. The question is whether I stay broken or turn my pieces into weapons. Ethan smiled, and this time it reached his eyes. Then let's get started. 2 weeks later, Maya Chen disappeared. The coffee shop, the data entry job, the office cleaning, all of it ended. She left her tiny apartment with nothing but a suitcase and got into Ethan's car. Where are we going? She asked. Somewhere you can heal, Ethan said. Somewhere you can become someone new. Someone strong enough to take him down. Maya looked out the window at the city passing by. Somewhere out there, Marcus Blackwell was living his life, believing he'd won. Believing he'd destroyed her completely. He had no idea what was coming. She turned to Ethan. How long do we have? As long as it takes, he said. 6 months. A year. However long you need. Maya nodded. She thought about Daniel in that prison bed. About her parents losing their home. About Ethan's sister, who'd given up hope. About all the other victims Marcus had left in his wake. 6 months, she said firmly. Give me 6 months, and I'll be ready. Ready for what? Maya's reflection stared back at her from the car window. She barely recognized herself anymore. But maybe that was the point. Ready to become his worst nightmare, she said. And for the first time in 8 months, she smiled. End of part 1. Part 2, the game. The transformation. 6 months. That's how long it took for Maya Chen to die and for Arya Sterling to be born. The woman who stepped out of the Blacktown car at the Grand Celestial Hotel looked nothing like the broken, exhausted person who'd cleaned offices for minimum wage. Arya Sterling wore a midnight blue dress that cost more than Maya's old monthly rent. Her hair, once long and dark, now fell in elegant waves of chocolate brown with subtle highlights. Colored contacts turned her brown eyes to striking green. Makeup sculpted her features into something sharper, more sophisticated. Even her posture was different, shoulders back, chin high, moving through the world like someone who owned it. Because now, in a way, she did. Ethan had been thorough. The past 6 months had been a complete transformation. Private estate in the mountains where Maya learned to become Arya. Voice coaching to soften her accent, add a hint of European inflection. Etiquette training. Investment knowledge. Technology skills. Self-defense classes that left her bruised but stronger. Therapy sessions that helped her process the trauma without letting it consume her. And every night, studying Marcus. His patterns. His tactics. His weaknesses. Ethan had given her a complete background, Arya Sterling, tech investor who'd made a fortune in cryptocurrency and emerged software. Recently relocated from London. No connection to Maya Chen whatsoever. The identity was bulletproof. Ethan's resources had seen to that. Now it was time to use it. The charity gala was for children's cancer research, the same cause that had brought Maya and Ethan together. Sophie, the little girl from the hospital, had lost her battle 2 months ago. Both of them carried that grief, but they'd channeled it into purpose. Sophie deserved justice too, in her own way. She deserved a world with fewer monsters in it. Arya moved through the ballroom with practiced ease. The room glittered with crystal chandeliers and designer gowns. The city's elite gathering to write checks and feel good about themselves. Somewhere in this crowd was Marcus Blackwell. She spotted him near the bar, holding court with a circle of admirers. He looked exactly the same, tall, handsome, impeccably dressed in a tailored tuxedo. His smile was magnetic. His laugh carried across the room. He was charming everyone around him, just like he'd charmed her once. Arya felt her chest tighten, but she pushed the feeling down. She wasn't Maya anymore. Maya had been naive and trusting. Arya was neither. She caught a server's attention and took a glass of champagne, not to drink but to hold. Then she positioned herself exactly where Marcus would see her when he turned around. She didn't have to wait long. Marcus's gaze swept across the room and stopped on her. Arya felt it like a physical touch. She met his eyes for just a moment, long enough to register interest, not long enough to seem eager. Then she looked away, pretending to be fascinated by a sculpture near the window. From the corner of her eye, she saw him excuse himself from his group. Saw him start walking in her direction. Show time. I don't believe we've met, Marcus said, appearing beside her with that practiced smile. Marcus Blackwell. Arya turned, arranging her features into polite interest. Looking into his eyes was harder than she'd expected. She'd spent so many nights imagining this moment, but reality was different. He was the man who'd destroyed her life. And he had absolutely no idea who she was. Arya Sterling, she said, her accent perfect. She shook his hand briefly. Lovely event. You're new to the city? Marcus asked, moving smoothly into conversation mode. I know most of the major donors, and I definitely would have remembered meeting you. Arya smiled slightly. Recently relocated from London. I've been keeping a low profile while I get settled. What brings you to our city? Business opportunities. I'm an investor, primarily in tech and emerging markets. Your city has a thriving startup scene. Marcus's eyes lit up with interest. Not just personal interest, financial interest. Tech investing? That's fascinating. I'm in finance myself. Perhaps we could discuss some opportunities over dinner? Arya pretended to consider it. Perhaps. Though I tend to keep business and pleasure separate. Smart, Marcus said, leaning in slightly. But what if it could be both? The arrogance was breathtaking. He was already assuming she'd say yes, already planning his next move. Arya recognized the pattern now. The quick charm. The smooth transition from stranger to someone who felt familiar, trustworthy. He was a predator, and he was very, very good at what he did. "I'll think about it," Arya said, pulling a business card from her clutch. "Call my office if you'd like to set something up. Now if you'll excuse me, I see someone I need to speak with." She walked away before he could respond, feeling his eyes following her across the room. Perfect. She'd given him enough interest to intrigue him, enough distance to make him work for it. Men like Marcus loved the chase. Ethan was waiting on the balcony overlooking the city. He stood with his hands in his pockets, staring out at the lights. When Arya joined him, he didn't turn around. "How did it go?" he asked quietly. "Hook set," Arya replied. "He'll call tomorrow." "Are you okay?" "No." She stood beside him, breathing in the cold night air. "But I can do this." Ethan finally looked at her, and his expression was complicated. Over the past 6 months, they'd spent nearly every day together. Training. Planning. Talking late into the night about their pain, their anger, their need for justice. He'd seen her at her worst, crying, raging, breaking down and building herself back up. And she'd seen him too, the man behind the billionaire facade. The brother who still grieved his sister. The person who blamed himself for not protecting her. They'd become something to each other. Partners, yes. Friends, definitely. But sometimes, in quiet moments, Arya wondered if it was becoming something more. "You look beautiful," Ethan said. Then he caught himself. "I mean, you look like Arya. Like someone completely different." "That's the point," Arya said, but something warm had flickered in her chest at his words. She pushed it aside. There was no room for distraction. "Not now." "He has no idea who you are," Ethan said, turning back to the city. "We've created the perfect ghost. Now we need to haunt him." Ethan smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Be careful, Maya. He's dangerous." "I'm not Maya anymore," she reminded him. Maya was the victim. Arya is the hunter. The hunt begins. Marcus called the next morning, just like Arya knew he would. She let it ring 3 times before answering. "Arya Sterling. Marcus Blackwell. We met last night at the gala." "I remember. I was hoping you'd reconsidered my dinner invitation. I'd love to discuss some investment opportunities." Arya pulled up her calendar, carefully crafted by Ethan to make her look busy and important. "I have an opening Thursday evening. 7 o'clock. Perfect. I know an excellent restaurant." "Send the details to my assistant," Arya interrupted smoothly. "I'll confirm this afternoon." She ended the call before he could respond. Another power play. Never let him control the conversation. Thursday came. The restaurant was expensive and exclusive, exactly the kind of place Marcus used to impress people. Arya arrived exactly on time, not early, not late. Marcus was already there, which meant he'd arrived early to ensure he had the advantage. Arya slid into her seat with practiced grace. "Thank you for meeting me." "My pleasure." Marcus signaled the waiter. "I took the liberty of ordering wine. I hope you don't mind." "Not at all." The evening proceeded like a carefully choreographed dance. Marcus talked about his work, dropping names and figures designed to impress. Arya listened with apparent interest, occasionally asking intelligent questions that showed she understood the business. She'd spent months learning this language, and now it flowed naturally. "You're remarkably knowledgeable," Marcus said at one point, studying her over his wine glass. "Most people's eyes glaze over when I talk about market dynamics." "I find it fascinating," Arya said. "The psychology of investment. How trust and timing can create or destroy fortunes." "Exactly." Marcus leaned forward, warming to his subject. It's all about reading people. Understanding what they want, what they fear. Once you know that, you can give them exactly what they need to hear. Arya felt ice slide down her spine. He was describing his con strategy without even realizing it. The sociopathy was breathtaking. Speaking of which, Marcus continued, I have a proposition for you. I'm putting together an investment fund. Limited partners only. Very exclusive. The returns have been exceptional. Here it was. The trap. The same one he'd probably set for dozens of victims. Tell me more, Arya said, keeping her voice neutral. For the next 30 minutes, Marcus laid out his pitch. The fund was real enough, Arya and Ethan had researched it thoroughly. It was making money, which made it the perfect cover. But underneath, Marcus was using it to launder money from his various schemes. New investors' money went to pay off old investors while he skimmed from the top. A classic Ponzi structure hidden inside a legitimate-looking business. It sounds intriguing, Arya said when he finished. But I'd need to see the complete financials before making a decision. Something flickered across Marcus's face. Annoyance, maybe, or calculation. Of course. Though I should mention, spots are limited. I have several people waiting for an opening. The pressure tactic. Classic. I'm sure you do, Arya said smoothly. But I didn't make my fortune by making rushed decisions. If the opportunity is as good as you say, it will still be good after due diligence. Marcus smiled, but it was thinner now. Fair enough. I'll have my team send over the documents. Excellent. Arya signaled for the check. This has been enlightening. Thank you for your time. You're leaving already? Marcus looked surprised. Most women probably lingered, hoping to extend the evening. I have an early meeting tomorrow. But we should do this again. Arya left him sitting there, off balance. Perfect. The web tightens. Over the next 6 weeks, Arya carefully inserted herself into Marcus's world. She attended the same charity events. Joined his gym. Showed up at his favorite restaurants at strategic times, always looking surprised to see him there. Each encounter was brief but memorable. She was the butterfly he couldn't quite catch. Meanwhile, Ethan's team was digging into every aspect of Marcus's life. Financial records. Business dealings. Personal relationships. They discovered he was engaged again, a woman named Catherine, daughter of a wealthy shipping magnate. The wedding was set for 6 months away. We need to warn her, Arya said when Ethan showed her the file. They were in his penthouse office, surrounded by screens and documents. It had become their war room. We will, Ethan promised. But if we move too soon, Marcus will cover his tracks. We need irrefutable evidence first. She could lose everything. I know. Ethan's voice was heavy. But rushing will just let him escape. We need to be smart about this. Arya stared at Catherine's photo. She was young, maybe 26. Beautiful. Smiling. She had no idea what was coming. I hate this, Arya whispered. I know. Ethan came to stand beside her. They were close now, close enough that she could feel his warmth. He reached out and gently took her hand. Maya. Arya, she corrected automatically. No. He turned her to face him. Maya. That's who you really are. Arya is just armor.